Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the LargeHoverVan of the first Run Addendum Hover Vehicles series. My name is Wimp, and I'm the Chief Designer, Chief Builder, Chief Architect, and Chief Dumbass of the LargeHoverVan project. Now, there is a small story behind this. It was supposed to be called the HoverTruck. I will tell you that little story at the end. It's nothing exciting, so don't worry too much, but this is the vehicle here. Now, those of you who are familiar with my builds will recognise it, but just in case you're not, I will talk about the original vehicle. So this large hover van is a variation of the hover camper of the first Run Hover Vehicles series, FRAHV 8, I think, yeah. The hover camper. So there are a couple of differences, but not too much, and I did think it would make a good kind of cargo transport vehicle, and I figured that I would put the access point to the cargo container here in this doorway, which you can see just there, which gives a use for this little platform and the little roof above it on this new vehicle as well, which I quite like the idea of. Other changes, actually I will cover those as I go through the features of the vehicle, and I will start that now. There's one. So first I will talk about its role and its task equipment. So, being a van, it is a cargo transport ground vehicle, and to facilitate that role, in through the shutter, which as I said is in that doorway. I did actually think about just doing a 2-wide door, but that's kind of irrelevant. But it looked odd. It looked odd as in uneven as well as weird. But there's its main container there, and that holds 22,000 SU. Next I'm going to talk about its propulsion and its lift capacity. So, much like the hover ambulance, which isn't actually here, which is another variation of the hover camper, and the intended upgrade path of the hover camper, this new vehicle has 2 large tier 2 thrusters in all directions, forward, back, left and right. It has no it has no RCSs on by default, but it does have one as part of the max lift. Speaking of lift, it has 8 small hover engines on by default, 2 in each corner, plus another 2 on each side in the middle of the vehicle, set to the max lift. On top of that, it has 5 of what I call jump boosters, just to help you get out of any hole you might be stuck in, or over any obstacle, especially when you're full of stuff. Now, its lift capacity in 1G, with max lift on, those 12 hover engines can lift just under 245 tons. It's 244.89, I think it was, so just under. In 2Gs, half that at 122.4 tons it can lift. And in 4G, again, half that to 61.2 tons. Now, as I said in the video tour of the hover ambulance, I'm not sure how the game actually calculates its lift. So the vehicle itself weighs 23.1 tons. Now, I don't know if you don't have to edit that at all, and you just take that away from the 61.2 tons it can lift in 4G. I mean, it can lift a further just shy of, what is it, 38 tons in 4G. Or do you have to quadruple that number? Oh, maths. So 20, 44, 88. So 92 tons. I don't know whether you're looking at the vehicle weighs 92 tons in 4Gs and the hover engines can only lift 61, so it won't operate. I honestly don't know. not without testing, and I'm too lazy for that. So just bear that in mind. So next I want to talk about its power, fuel and air. Now, like I did with the hover ambulance, I basically started with the upgraded hover camper. And when you upgrade the hover camper, you replace the small generator here and that one red block with a large, which is exactly what this one has. Fuel, it has these 6 fuel tanks that you can see here, 4 large, 2 small. There are none anywhere else. Now, you do have to be a little bit careful with any threats from the front, because that's all that is blocking the fuel tanks from being hit from weapons fire. So, yeah, do be careful, but then it's a van, not a tank. It's kind of what you expect, you know. Air, there are 3 O2 tanks behind the seats. O2 station is there, and the ventilator is in the middle. Oh, and just in case anyone wants proof, there are all the little blue shapes there. Right, next then I will talk about its weapons, defences and construction. So, it has a single turret on top, operated by the weapons signal. And that's your lot. And turret. And the turret is set to those targets. So it's basically small grids and infantry except prey. So anything neutral or friendly it won't shoot at. It won't shoot at any large grids, and on the small grids it won't shoot at anything that's not a weapon. Basically, close that and put the turret away. Defences. It has no shield and it has no armour. Nice and easy. Construction. It is steel, but it's all the thin wall-shaped steel blocks and variations of it. There is some carbon composite, but the carbon composite is not part of the bodywork. So, for example, this platform and the little roof above it, and these tiny little corner bits also are carbon. That's steel for some reason, but never mind. There is a little bit of carbon composite in the floor, but not sure you can really call that a floor. You can step inside and then that's your lot. Right then, next I will talk about its resource gathering, production and storage. Well, the first two are easy. It has none of them. It has no resource gathering, no drills and no harvester module on the front. That was removed from the camper. It has no construction. It has no production, because the constructor, I did originally have one in it, and actually it was where the O2 tanks are, and I removed it, and I will tell you that little story at the end, like I said earlier. Storage wise, well, we already saw, that's the wrong button, up there. So we already saw the 22k SU storage cargo container. It has a 250 SU ammo container. I'll show you where that is in a bit. And then it has 4 small cargo boxes in the cab and a mini fridge. Next then, I'm going to talk about its interior layout and the remaining devices. Well, interior layout, well, there's not really much to talk about. As I said just now, that's your lot. You can step just inside the door and then you can get into a seat. But this is the cab. As you can see, it has the usual LCD HUD display things that I normally put on, or at least I have been doing for a little while now. Its remaining devices, well, there are the cargo boxes I mentioned. There is some lights in here with a switch that can be manually activated. You may have noticed on the signal there is also interior lights, custom signal. The mini fridge is there. Now behind the seats and the mini fridge is the core, the T2 CPU extender and the Wi-Fi. That's behind the seats. Oh, I forgot to mention there's a O2 station on both sides, sorry. The detector is here. It has 2 headlights and 2 tail lights. I like putting the flares on as my tail lights. It has a whole bunch of docking pads just to make it look like it will hold its weight. As you saw, armor locker is on the outside. There is a light on the outside for lighting up the little platform. And the O2 stations are accessible from the outside as well, on both sides. That is all the devices, I do believe. Yeah. Right, next then is the shortcuts and the signals. Now, you did get a quick look at them earlier on, but I will go through them now. So, when you spawn it in, this is how it will come with them turned on. The propulsion, etc. device group shortcut there will turn on, obviously, all of the thrusters and all of the hover engines, or all of the default ones, I should say. The max lift shortcut there will turn on the additional hover engines and that RCS in the center of the vehicle. Headlights and tail lights are fairly self-explanatory. Ventilators will turn off the ventilator in the cab. So if you're in a breathable atmosphere like this, I like including a shortcut to turn that off, because you won't really need the vehicle oxygenated. Now, if we look at the power left over here, when I turn the ventilators off, it will go up. It's not a great deal of savings of fuel, but it is something. So that's why I like to include that. Power save, not much on this one really. So you turn the power save on and it'll turn off the heads up displays in here. It'll also turn off the 2 switches for controlling the lights, and it'll turn off the Wi-Fi. The fridge itself has to be turned on and off manually here. I always leave them turned off by default because there's no point wasting power until you've put your sandwiches in it. Next then, shortcut, signal wise, interior lights. So that turns on the ones in here the same as that switch, so that you can do it from the seat if you need to. The exterior lights will do that one again in case you want to turn it on from the seat, so you don't have to use the lever there. The weapons, of course, you saw me use, gets the turret out, and close cab doors. Now this is the first one where I've actually thought about it because, you know, I'm dumb. So if you get into the vehicle and you've left the door open, you can't close that without getting back out the seat. So I've included that signal which will close any of those 2 cab doors that are open. Right, the last thing I need to talk about is CPU and upgrading. So I showed you where the T2 CPU extender was. That's its usage, just shy of 8,000 out of the 12,000 available. Upgrading wise, there is no allocated upgrade slots. So you could modify it. For example, if you wanted to use this for something different, but this is slightly better, you could of course rip out all of the container extensions and then use this vehicle instead. So there is a difference, in my opinion, between modification and personalization and upgrading. It doesn't actually have a designated upgrade path, as it were. So there we go. Oh, little story time. So I need to get another vehicle out for this real quick. The HoverVan of the First Run Hover Vehicles, number 9. So this, originally in here, had another 3 small containers. The armor locker was in the cab. There was actually a 1-block gap behind the seats that you could walk past before all of this. As I said earlier, there was a constructor where the O2 tanks were. And there was another shutter here that was in the place of that door. And inside there was the fuel and the air and the ammo container. I didn't show you the ammo container. The ammo container is there, between the seats in front of the fridge. So, that was there. There was 3 more small cargo boxes there. And then hover engines, the front ones were the same, but these were 2 larges, one on each side, and the inboard ones here was also 2 large hover engines. And as you can see from the cursor there, these are container extensions. So in all, it had 16,000 volume. And I was like, oh yeah, that's fine for a hover truck, until I checked the HoverVan of the first Run Hover Vehicle series. So what I didn't actually realise is that, so the container extensions on this vehicle, let's see, that was a gap, that was the devices. So the container extension started there where the armour locker was, and although they did go all the way up to the back, it wasn't fully, because like I said, there was fuel and O2 and ammo storage here as well. So, and then the hover engines took up some of the container extensions, so it turned out to be 16. And then I looked at this and it was 19, and I realized that the container extensions on this one, they actually start there. So when you take this van from there to there, which is container extensions, although from there it's all container extensions, even under the floor, it actually turned out to have less, despite the fact that I was calling it a truck. So I sort of had to play with things a little bit and move things around and get it to have more storage. Right, so that's the end of the little story and the end of the tour. So thank you very much for taking an interest in the LargeHoverVan of the first Run Addendum Hover Vehicles series. I hope you get some use out of her, and hopefully I'll see you in a different video for another build. So thank you again, and goodbye.